Now to our special report. A former president's struggle to get just about any criminal defense attorneys while he's facing basically the most escalating simultaneous criminal probes of his long litigious life. The new headline this week is familiar. Everyone at law firms saying no to Trump's bids to get seasoned lawyers. It's familiar because you may recall it's a problem Trump also faced, and this was documented during the Mueller probe. Now, the reporting states the reasons stem from 1, Trump as a person, and 2, Trump as a deadbeat. His style and refusal to cooperate or take advice makes him nearly impossible to represent, say sources. One observer diplomatically noted it would be unclear if new lawyers would ever get paid. Yes, it would be unclear. Or there's a long line of litigation and complaints about him not paying bills. So Trump has been in similar spots before. And he has found lawyers, and he has evaded other cases. So let's be clear. You might hear this and say, okay, Ari, but we've heard about this before, and then he still got away. But I want to be clear with you, only following the facts as we can find them, Donald Trump is in a measurably worse and more desperate legal condition now. For example, before, he'd never been subject to a criminal search of his home. That's a first this month. He'd never pled the Fifth Amendment until last week. He has a federal criminal probe eyeing his failed coup, which is a set of government-related problems with people cooperating when he's out of government, so different than the Mueller probe. And then just today, as reported, the top finance officer of his company pleading guilty. The whole firm awaits that October trial. And one of Trump's recent lawyers, who's not available to represent him anymore, is because of his legal problems. Rudy Giuliani, busy with the criminal probe in Georgia, where he has been formally targeted for indictment, just testified 6 hours yesterday. And that's a trend with Trump's lawyers. They often find themselves in need of other lawyers. And that's the third reason that sometimes it could be hard for him to find lawyers, because the new lawyers look at this kind of case, understand not only could it be expensive when they don't get paid, but it could be disastrous if they lose their law license, like Roy Cohn, who was disbarred, or Michael Cohen, who was convicted, or the recently searched coup lawyer, John Eastman. Now, Trump's lawyer representing specifically the Florida matter, that search, is already linked to the elector fraud plot, which means she could have Giuliani-type problems. And she left television to work for Trump, but then likened the situation, well, back to the silver screen.
Why wouldn't you just release that yourselves?
Well, this is part of the discussion with the Department of Justice. Of course, we're trying to do everything in accordance with the law and
there's absolutely nothing preventing you guys from releasing it, though.
Other than decorum.
That's one relatively new lawyer in Florida where, as we reported, there are signs that the search was more about recovering evidence than preparing charges, meaning that is not Donald Trump's worst problem. Most people would be very concerned to have their home searched under a criminal warrant in any situation, but for him, Florida's lesser. So what's more? Well, as I'm telling you, it's a different story in Georgia, where the DA has targeted over a dozen people for indictment for alleged crimes that were to benefit Trump, meaning not just random crimes or people he knows, but crimes for his political benefit, for his attempted coup. And it's linked to his own illicit demands, which were caught on tape.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
That is very bad. That is now criminal evidence. That is on tape. If you follow this stuff sometimes and you say, gosh, it seems like Trump did so much all over the place, especially around trying to overthrow the election, that's public evidence. That's something people can decide whether it disqualifies him for office or not in your own mind and vote. But our legal system, as I've told you, is much more precise. So if he does one thing over here in Wisconsin and another in Georgia, those are two different state probes when dealing with state law. Georgia is the place that's the worst for Trump. Georgia is the place where you have that tape. Georgia is the place where you have others already marked for targeted indictment. Now, having said that, nobody can predict what DAs or grand juries will do. But the evidence matters, so you have more damning evidence in Georgia than any other state. So his problem is most acute there. And let me tell you something. Donald Trump seems to know that. Because while I just showed you the reporting about how he's juggling this search for lawyers in more than one case all over the country and in his home state of Florida, and recruiting people off TV or off personal relationships. In Georgia, it's a little different, which is our special report. New information: he has now turned to a seasoned criminal defense trial lawyer who has actually clashed with this same DA in Atlanta, who has won some uphill criminal cases, who is part of a small but experienced criminal defense firm. It's the Findling Law Firm in Georgia, and it's headed by the former president of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. We're talking about real credentials here. The New York Times just broke the news that Trump got this legal breakthrough, and he's hired Drew Findling, sometimes called the billion-dollar lawyer, as his counsel in Georgia. Now, Mr. Findling also, according to the New York Times, is best known for representing rappers. And bottom line, Trump is facing a potential RICO charge here, which is a gangster problem. And now he's tapped Gucci Mane's lawyer. It was Findling who got the very celebrated artist Gucci Mane off what could have been almost life and career-ending situations. He had 2013 charges that included allegedly threatening police, which has become quite popular among MAGA supporters lately. And Findling was able to bring that down from a possible 20 years in prison to 3. Now, I'll tell you, in that situation, it was considered a legal success, although it is 3 more years in prison than his new client would be hoping to serve.
There are 3 problems with the criminal justice system: racism, mass incarceration, and the issue of collateral consequences.
Did that judge stop the hearing to basically say, hey, check out the black woman, she's articulate?
I think is that we've exaggerated what gangs are in Atlanta. I think we've exaggerated what RICO is in Atlanta. We're not really indicting anybody for Quentin Tarantino films, are we? Right?
Mr. Findling there, speaking about a case we've covered that is involving the same DA and the use of evidence against artists. What we have here is a real-life story of rap and law combining. It's also an important legal development for this Georgia case. Now, yes, I'll be honest with you, it might be tempting to take this opening to try to wedge in some Gucci Mane reference into Trump's situation, but that doesn't seem necessary right now. And honestly, that's not what we're about here. It's not like just because the former president and Gucci Mane are in a story, we're going to just squeeze in every last Gucci bar into a newscast. I mean, does that sound like something we would do? Trump often talks like he's tough, like he's ready for these legal fights, like, to use a common parlance, he wants the smoke. Sometimes he makes it sound like he wants all the smoke. But in many of these big cases, Trump University, testifying to Mueller, firing his own staff, Donald Trump don't want the smoke. To paraphrase Gucci Mane, why you flexing, Donald? You don't want no smoke. You don't want no smoke. That was then. Now there is plenty of smoke for Donald Trump in Georgia. And to be clear, Findling is a serious attorney. He is known sometimes by certain cases, including representing some of Georgia's most prominent artists. But we've actually had him on the beat before as a prominent criminal defense attorney for his legal expertise assessing then Trump lawyer Alan Dershowitz.
And I look at it as a trial attorney, and I look at Alan Dershowitz speaking and think about how he would be cross-examined. And he ended by talking about how partisan the proceedings have been to date. That shows that he's walking into this with a political opinion.
That's what he told us right here on the beat. Now, today, Findling is not analyzing Trump lawyers. He is one. And as a longtime civil rights advocate, he's also been publicly critical of Donald Trump. He called him a, quote, racist, and labeled him pathetic once again. So there is a lot here apart from the rap overlap. And we are learning that whatever else you think here is going on, Donald Trump or someone close to him who can affect his decision-making knows the difference between the search in Florida and the potential indictment in Georgia, knows the difference between some of what's going on in New York, which is serious but may not reach him personally, and what apparently requires one of the type of, and they say this as a compliment in the bar, one of the type of legal killers you need to deal with real cases and real prison time against that DA and that use of RICO in Atlanta. So that's pretty striking. Now, ultimately, only Trump knows if this particular lawyer will get the bag And if a counsel who once called Donald Trump racist is a fake friend or a true dog, or is someone who might only be after a publicity stunt. Either way, we know Trump is back at it again because he's faced legal pressure before. The big question here is, will he end up legally both eyes closed? Now, are these serious questions? Or are these all Gucci Mane songs? Only time will tell.